So it's been a minute since we've talked about the trailer because we were in a mad rush to finish it. And so the last episode we left off, we had a lot to do. We were still installing lights. Still had to put the floor in. We still had to assemble the jockey boxes, run beer lines, run all the electrical to the batteries. We had a lot to do.
Yeah, we had a few late nights there.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of 9, 10 o'clockers. But got it done. Everything seemed to basically go off without a hitch that I can think of.
Agreed.
The lights turned out awesome. We didn't
Yeah.
really use them at the wedding because we were done before it was dark, but
It looked fantastic in the end, and like you said, there really was no big hiccups, which was good because
Yeah.
we did have some late nights, and it did come down to the wire. So
good planning though.
Yeah. So let's back up. Let's talk about the floor.
okay,
Well, is that where you guys want to start?
Sure, why not?
Okay, let's talk about the floor.
from the bottom up,
That was just, did we put a subfloor down? Yeah, we ended up putting a
we did
subfloor and then a vapor barrier and then
Yep.
just a floating tongue and groove laminate.
So talk about the subfloor first.
Subfloor is just thin wood. I don't know what kind of wood it is. It's not actual subfloor.
It's really thin, like OSB. I would say, like
Yeah.
layered plywood.
Okay, why did you choose that?
So it would be cheap to replace, honestly. There's going to be moisture on either side of it. You know, what be it the moisture from the road or the moisture from pouring beer. So inevitably at some point you're going to need to replace that, and that's why we went with a floating floor so you could just pull it out.
It's not like a house either. Like that's the trailer, so it's going to move, and I feel like that material gives a little bit. There's some flexibility to it and some strength to it that's going to hold up over time with the trailer moving from place to place, possibly.
Exactly, and with the floating floor, it offers room for expansion, you know, because you're going to take it from cool areas to hot areas, and the wood is inevitably going to increase in size and decrease in size. So if you're bolting things down, that's going to cause problems with cracking and splitting and all that.
Okay, and then you put something over that wood,
The vapor barrier.
the vapor barrier.
Which is that roofing material?
No, it's underlayment
Is
for
it?
laminate flooring. Which, the way laminate flooring is made nowadays, it's pretty durable, so it probably could have gotten away without it, but it's $20. Might as well go above and beyond.
I think it's probably pretty important, being that the underside of that trailer is exposed somewhat. So if you are transporting it in wet conditions, inevitably moisture finds a way in, and
Yeah.
that's just a little bit of help to keep it from happening.
And that's because we left the original floor in the trailer, which has the wood is going lengthwise with the trailer, and then there's gaps between there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like 2x6s laid down
Yeah.
in the bottom.
With maybe a 1/4-inch gap.
Yeah.
So if you're traveling in the rain, it's going to throw some water up underneath the floor. So that's kind of why we didn't want to seal it or mount a permanent floor to it, you know. Because if the water gets in there, it needs to be able to get out. So
Right. So then over the vapor barrier, you laid
laminate,
laminate
tongue and groove. And that was easy.
First time I've ever done that. It was super easy. Not much to it, actually. I mean, I did cut some of the boards wrong the first time, just because
I told you to cut them that way.
I don't know about that.
I know about that.
We speak different languages sometimes, but that's part of it. Part of the whole manufacturing process.
So you started in one corner and then you worked your way to the back of the trailer. Is that what you did, or did you go?
You basically, what we did is we started from, say, the driver's side wall, and you fit that in, and then you stagger the pieces as you go across. So we started with a 4-foot section, I think, and figured out the rest of the pieces for that one row, and then you go down to a 3-foot section and so on and so forth, row by row. So
Okay.
you stagger them so that the joints aren't all in the same line with each other.
Okay.
Yeah, it strengthens the floor and it just aesthetically looks a lot better.
Yeah.
And you always want to run laminate flooring the long way. If you're in a whatever type of room you're doing, it just looks better.
Okay.
And it's generally easier.
Yeah, the lines kind of look like they follow everything else in the trailer. The panel on the inside, the lines kind of follow that, and aesthetically, it does look well.
Which is the next thing we did, the paneling, which we went back and forth on numerous times, whether or not we were going to do like tongue and groove on the walls or just paneling. And we found this white paneling that mimics shiplap, and it looks great. So we went with it.
Yeah, that was a lot easier than I had envisioned.
Yeah.
I mean, we like the tongue and groove part. I mean, anything else other than that paneling would have been pretty difficult, I think. I mean, we'd have figured it out, but it'd been a lot more
Yeah.
thinking and
Mounting would have been difficult. Wouldn't consider it cutting corners either or cutting costs. It's
no,
just
if
it
you
worked
look at
and
a
it looks
picture,
good.
yeah. I mean, this is the part where you pull up a picture of it, right? And
Right.
put it in there, and
Right.
it looks amazing. It doesn't look like we cut corners at all. It looks like it was intended to be done that way,
Which it was.
for sure.
And it was one, I mean, it was kind of a learn as you go thing, but we're pretty I'm an overthinker, so I think that helps. It hurts a lot of times, but sometimes it helps. But I think by the time, when you think about things constantly until you get to the point where you're actually doing it, it's a lot easier to make a decision, I think.
Yeah.
So once we got to the point of doing the walls, it was like, oh yeah, let's just do paneling because we don't have any furring strips to mount it to, or which we did end up putting furring strips in there to mount to. But like I said, if it would have been tongue and groove, 4-inch, that would have been very difficult.
Part of what I like about the paneling is the tongue and groove that we did, the spalted maple, it sticks out. Like if we'd have done tongue and groove on the walls on the inside, it might not stand out as much.
Okay.
Valid point. Yeah, and then we put trim over the floor to let it float. We left the flooring about 3/8 of an inch from all the walls. Like I said, it expands with heat and moisture. So then we put I don't know, what do we use 1x4s for the trim?
For the trim, it was
Oh, it was the baseboards that you
baseboards.
mounted
Yeah.
the LED lights in,
Yeah.
which, like I said, it turned out so awesome. I
Yeah.
know we're biased, but it looks great. The maple with that bluish gray just matches really well. And I mean, Brian's right now in the process of finishing adding the spalted maple on the sides of the trailer.
The accent pieces.
Yes,
To cover
accent
up
pieces.
There's still a few openings. There was a few things that we did not get to, but
Nobody would have noticed
no.
Correct.
stuff that we wanted to do. That
And it didn't matter in the setting that it was in.
Right.
There was no rain. There was no.
I mean, it took me 8 years to finish the shoe molding at my old house, and the only person that noticed was my wife. Like, we had so many people over, and not once did somebody say, "Hey, you ever?" Well, I take that back. Shooter used to mention that every time he'd come over.
okay.
When are you
Well,
gonna finish that shoe mold?
He's basically like your wife. I mean, known you almost as long.
That's true. It was fun. I don't ever want to do it again. I mean, I kind of
Yeah.
do. Everything went really well. I don't feel like there was any big issues, which makes me never want to do it again. When you do a big project
Yeah.
like that and everything seems to go well.
I think the only issue we had was CBC falling right before.
Oh yeah, just
I mean,
timing.
it's just timing. Like I keep saying, anytime there's a deadline or a hard date, like things just get weird towards the end because you're scrambling.
Yep.
And
And we both came from skilled trades, and you learn when you're doing any type of project, the first 90% is the easiest part, and takes the least amount of time. It's that last 10% that takes 90% of the time.
finishing.
Touches.
Yep.
Like if this thing was rusted and we had structural issues, and I don't know, and
That would have been.
there
a
were so
whole-
many things that could have gone wrong that didn't, thankfully.
Yeah, that would have been a whole different animal.
And it'd be easy to say, "Oh, that was fun. Let's do it again." But we've done enough things in our lives to know that not everything's going to go perfectly
Right.
every time. But who knows? We'll probably start working on another one next week.
Wait till it gets slow again.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to do that in the middle of the warehouse
No.
when it's busy.
Yeah. Yeah, Derek put up with a lot with us.
He did. He's a patient man.
So along the baseboard there, we put some LED lights into the trim in order for light to shine on the floor as well.
Yeah, that actually worked out pretty easy too. And it wasn't until we got to the point where it was time to start putting that in that I was exactly sure how it was going to all come together. But then when I started laying it out and putting the baseboards down and just kind of staging them so I knew what we were doing, like having that channel in the back of the baseboards that we routed in there for the wiring just worked out perfect. And I think the hardest part was what you had to do with the wiring to extend the connections and stuff like that. I mean, it all just kind of fell on you to figure out how to do that part. I mean, the baseboards and the rest of it was easy. It was just the wiring that I think was the most difficult part of that whole process.
Yeah, and so what ended up happening, there was 3 lights in each board, and so we ran the wires all to one end.
Yep.
And then I basically clipped them all so they were the same length. Tied them all together because it's just positive and negative at that point. Tied them all together, and then ran another line from the front of the trailer to the batteries, to the bus bar. That was hooked up to the batteries. And so
What's a bus bar?
It's a bar so there's a positive negative that run from the battery to this bar that has a bunch of connection points on it. So you can connect 5 or 6 different wires to the one bar, which then connects to the battery. So you're not just running a bunch of wires to the batteries. So it's just another connection point.
Gotcha.
And then I also threw a positive on-off switch for the battery, so we can turn the batteries on and off.
And the dimmer switches,
And the dimmer switches, that's right.
which are pretty cool.
Yep.
It's unfortunate that we didn't get to use lighting in that setting because it really does look pretty cool with the.
Yeah, that's part of why I offered it up to our friend Scott in the middle of this month for a party, so we can get some pictures of it at night.
What else did we do? You guys put a bunch of. Well, I don't think any of the spalted maple was mounted or added to the side of the trailer when we were in here last.
No? Maybe we
I
should have
don't think
listened to it.
Yeah, probably.
So
That
that's
was a long
something that
time ago, actually. Yeah.
probably would have done differently. So what we did was the spalted maple was tongue and groove. It varies from like 3 to 5 inches. And there's a bar, an up and down vertical bar in the middle of the trailer. So the tongue and groove was separated. So we basically made 2 panels and cut them so it looked like the board just continued. But we took the tongue and groove and we glued it to some OSB. And it worked well. It made it easy to mount the panel to the trailer, but the glue made it get a little bendy. You know, it flexed quite a bit. I don't know. I don't know if I'd do it that way again.
I think it worked out pretty good. I think mounting it to the trailer flattened the assemblies out, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is when we glued the tongue and groove together and to the OSB, it kind of took on some weird curvature based on, I don't know if it was the tongue and groove being a little bit warped or the OSB being a little bit warped or just the nature of how it wound up. But
it looks awesome. We
It
ended up
does.
using carriage bolts that have like a round top, almost like a rivet look to them. But as I was mounting those, it made me think, shit, if one of these boards gets cracked or damaged or whatever, we can't just replace one board. So if we ever had to do it again, I would rather like weld some sort of slot system in there so you could just drop the tongue and groove in.
That's a
that's
good idea.
right. We
And
did
then-
talk about that.
If something were to happen in the future, you just pull them all out and replace it.
I
But
forgot we
live
talked
and learn.
about that. Yeah, you have so
Yeah.
many good ideas. Like it's
God, thank
hard
you.
to remember.
Somebody
Half of
acknowledged it
them.
finally.
It's always after the fact, though. That's the problem. Your timing sucks.
Woulda, coulda. Yeah, I do like to think I come up with a lot of ideas. That's what usually ruins everything. Oh, but we could do this. But we're already halfway done doing this.
And the bar top part worked out great. Like
Yeah.
I don't think we talked about that yet.
Mm-mm. Nope. We had some live edge
Yep.
wood that we were using for both sides, because we cut out windows on both sides. Most trailers don't. You don't see that, but
Right.
our trailer actually opens up.
Yeah, and the bar tops were initially made for my office by Corey at Cedar Run Decoys. They're live edge cherry. I used them in the sill in my office by the window. But they seem to be perfect. They're not very deep. I don't know. They were 6 to 8 inches deep probably. But I thought they were perfect from both sides of, like, as a server and as a consumer. You know, there's no need to have a 2-foot bar there. You're not sitting there bellied up watching the ESPNs, you know.
Right. Seemed to function.
Yeah, it makes
pretty
the
well.
exchange easy and it looks great. The guy I bought the spalted maple from, I asked him about the cherry and he said, wood goes with wood. That was his answer. Because I wasn't sure if the cherry would go well with the maple, but he wasn't entirely wrong. I don't know. We have cherry for the doors, and I do like it. I don't know. I don't love it. I wish it was lighter. I wish we'd have gone with something like birch or something.
Doors too.
Just the doors.
Just the doors. Leave the bar the way it is, and
I don't know. I feel like it's missing something. Maybe logo on the windows or the doors. I still don't know if they're doors or windows.
So
I don't either. And that was fun trying to figure out the shocks on those.
Oh yeah, that was very fun.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. So originally you guys had chosen what kind of shocks or what size, weight? How are they rated?
I think we initially
Pounds.
Yeah, they're it's a internal gas shock, so it's constantly pushing, right?
Like your 87 hatchback Escort.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm sure most listeners know exactly what we're talking about.
Probably the exact same shocks that were in those. But
Yeah.
we started off with 30 pounds, and it was a little aggressive. We put 2 on each window. I think it was 30 pounds. Didn't we start off with 30 or 50?
I think it might have been 50.
It was very aggressive, whatever we started off with. And
Yeah, it was like a medieval weapon.
it was. It would have been a catapult had we opened that window with those shocks on there. We tried, I think we tried 15 pounders,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't quite work right. But I think we went to 20.
It didn't quite have that oomph. Because there was initially, because most of the compressions and the initial extension, right?
Yeah.
So as it was opening, it was like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. But then it just didn't have the gusto to push it that last 15%.
Right. Yeah, and then finding the pivot point for those was pretty interesting too. It's something I have experienced in the past, but usually with working with CAD and in a CAD model of the spring to know where to pivot from. But we had to do it the old-fashioned way, and I will say it ended up working out great.
Yeah, naturally we hit it on the first swing.
Right.
That's exactly what I expected.
For sure. It only took 4 different shocks.
I think I still have wood filler in my Amazon cart. When you were drilling the holes, I was like,
You might want to leave it in there. I still got to put those accent pieces on.
yeah, that's a good point. That's another thing that when we got to that point, because it was late,
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. Like literally the hardest part of this thing is happening in the most crucial moment. But it all went.
It went good.
Yeah, we
Real
had
good.
hours to spare.
Moments. Plenty of minutes.
Did we miss anything on as far as building goes?
Did we talk about the jockey boxes?
No, the jockey box. So again, we did end up going with jockey boxes as opposed to a tap wall, just for versatility in case somebody wants to cook tacos in there or something, and they're not forced to have that wall permanently. But we did mount a backsplash with a mounted drip tray to the jockey boxes, and that kind of gave it a nice finished touch. It looks like a bar. And the drip trays did have a drain, which made it nice.
Which ran into a bucket.
Yes, which was fine. I mean, I tried to find this like a fancy looking rectangular bucket, but when all is said and done, it's a bar, and I think people expect to see bar towels and rinsers and all that stuff that you need to operate a bar. It doesn't all have to be glamorous. I think that's part of the charm of it. Like they say, don't look in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
But we set it up intentionally so they could look in. We left the door open, mounted that menu to it, so then people could walk up and see what was going on.
Yeah, I liked that part of it. We left the door open.
Yeah.
So people could see
It was very engaging. I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time, of course, I drank a few beers while we were there. So half the time I would walk over to that door and just kind of hang out and stand, just because it was nice to see in there and it was inviting.
Yeah.
Felt cool.
So now that we have the build wrapped up, right? I think that's everything that we...
the tables.
Oh, yes.
We put a sink in there too.
Yeah.
So we originally thought 2 15-inch wide tables, one 4 foot. The other one was about 2.5 to 3 feet for the other side. For the one side that's got the door that opens. So we wanted that one a little bit shorter. But after we built the tables and put them in there, it was too cramped, especially with 2 bartenders in there, that it was too much. So we wound up not using one of the tables. Plus, when you're standing up at the window, it was easier to engage with people if you could get right up to it.
Yeah.
And so it just felt a little bit more comfortable as a bartender to be able to lean onto the table at the window area.
Right.
Yeah. And everything went well. Was there 150 people there?
Yeah.
I see a lot of questions on the mobile bar Facebook page that we follow about how difficult it is to serve 150 people, and that rush that you get right before dinner. That was the busiest part, and they knocked it out, no issues.
Yep.
And we had 8 beers on tap.
That's what I was just going to say.
There was a wine and a seltzer, but 8 carbonated beverages on tap, and I mean, the cool thing about that trailer is we have both sides available, so if it got really busy, we could serve out of both sides, but they didn't even have to. It just went perfect.
Yeah, 150 people, roughly, 8 taps. I don't think I saw anybody get a beverage poured that was full of foam. I think that's one of the coolest parts about the trailer is how easy it is to use and how easy it is to take care of and clean up at the end.
Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of the point of using the jockey boxes.
Yeah.
And
I
you
think
could get a whole lot crazier with refrigeration and all that stuff, but it's kind of overkill.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like it would have been overkill. I mean, if you need a freezer or something, then don't rent a mobile bar like that.
Yeah.
But, it's just...
And we were able to fit 13 kegs in this keg storage area, which was more than we would need, obviously.
that's
but
insane.
it's good to know. Most of them were sixtels, but there was a couple quarter barrels in there. Plenty of storage space.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's with the battery under there. So,
And that's just icing down the jockey boxes, too.
Yep.
Right? No.
And we had a lot of extra beer, so we didn't necessarily need 13 kegs, but
right.
we probably only went through half of it, and then we only went through a quarter of the wine that we brought. So there was a lot left over. But we didn't know. I mean,
Yeah. And different crowds drink differently. If it would have been more 60-year-olds, we would have gone through a lot more wine, I feel like.
yeah.
We did run out of, was it Chardonnay?
Yeah. That was expected. Malf's the Pilsner was the first thing to go, which is
Yep.
I'd have put $100 on that.
Then the Prosecco went.
Yep. Surprisingly, we didn't run out of all-day IPA. I thought for sure that would be a popular
That was
one.
pretty close. That
Was it?
Was
probably
that
a quarter left?
Was that
Okay.
a quarter barrel? Was that
Yeah.
a full
Yeah.
quarter barrel?
I think we went through both kegs of Malfs.
Yep, both kegs of Malfs, and then the Kona went pretty quick.
Ah,
Kona brown ale,
Yep.
coffee brown.
That was also a surprise, too. I mean,
Mhm.
your dad was there, but he probably had 3, if that.
One or two maybe.
I think
That's
he was.
pushing it for him.
Yeah.
Was he drinking Melfs that night, or was he drinking, or does he not drink?
Oh, he
Kona's
doesn't
his
drink.
favorite.
Yeah, like once or twice a year, he'll have a beer or two.
Gotcha.
Law of averages. We make up for it.
Somebody's got to drink one. Somebody's got to drink 100.
Yeah, exactly. 1% of fishermen catch 99% of the beers. That's what my dad always said, something like that.
That's the one thing I've never heard your dad say before.
So, we've briefly talked about our plans for the trailer, for the future. I think we've talked about, creating some content from it like this, but we have tons of build videos and documented footage that we can throw together, and then we want to use it to make other videos. But like you said, our buddy is using it in a couple weeks for was it a birthday party?
A wedding
A wedding.
reception.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll probably throw a neighborhood party at my house with it. It's just fun. I mean, it's a cool thing. It's easy to set up. Like Brian said, it's easy to clean up. So we might as well take advantage of it. I don't know if we're gonna sell it or keep it or rent it out. Who knows?
It's hard to say what to do with it at this point. I'm not the brains in this operation, anyways. But
Well, you're not the good looks either. So what's?
I don't know. You tell me what I'm doing.
Just kidding.
It must be my personality.
But I also don't think we need to make a decision right away
Right.
with it. We can just kind of let it be, and it's being used. It's got, there's some stuff on the calendar for it, and we can play it by ear, I think.
Yeah, it'd be
It's
fun
kind
to.
of it's kind of an advertisement for Coldbreak on some level, like the ability to let people use it and make the content and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I think it helps show a lot of what Coldbreak can do. And
Yeah, I'd like to do a cocktail party too. See what it's like to mix cocktails in there, but then my mind immediately goes to batching cocktails
Yep.
because I don't want to make a margarita one at a time.
Yep.
I don't want to drink a margarita one at a time.
well, you only have two hands.
Well, anything else, guys?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any of the other build stuff.
One thing I learned quickly was in transportation. And Brian and I pulled all the kegs out of the coolers and threw them in our trucks and brought them to the wedding and then loaded them into the trailer. And we definitely should have just put them in the trailer and used the trailer like a trailer. But obviously you want to make sure everything's secure. But 13 kegs fit in there really nicely, and it would have been fine. I know it was fine because I pulled it away from the wedding with the kegs in it, and it was perfect. I did leave the jockey boxes in there on the way back because it was late and we had to get out of there. I don't know if I would. I probably wouldn't travel that way if they weren't. I definitely wouldn't if they weren't secured, because that would suck if you got to your location and the jockey box was laying on the
Smashed,
floor.
yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you guys had kind of turned them and wedged them in there a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. But again, if the trailer itself was, the nucleus of a business that we were running, then we would be more intentional on the setup. Like we would build the tap wall. If we knew what we were going to be doing every week, we offer these 3 cocktails and these 3 beers or whatever, we would know what we would need. But since we don't, that's why we went with jockey boxes. So definitely would want more of a permanent or easily removable option when it comes to the boxes.
Yeah, and I think that we've learned from, even from Michelle, what's
Tipsy?
Tipsy Trailer. Yep, she's got how many trailers now? A lot, and they're all a little bit different. So just because we built one that's got 8 taps in it, like the next trailer, if we built one, could only have 3 in it. Like that serves a specific purpose, having the ability to pour 8 beers or 8, carbonated beverages at once.
I am eyeballing this Army trailer right now. It's like a
Not
wagon
surprised.
style trailer. It's olive drab. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It'd be a good four tap, 4 half barrel kind of a good old boy
Just a
wagon.
straight trailer, serve yourself kind of a
Oh.
deal.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sounds awesome.
All right, I'm going to get it.
Don't tell Derek.
In closing, it's easy for us to say that it was an easy thing to do, but we do have a lot of experience, not necessarily in building horse trailers, but we have the tools between the three of us needed to be successful in that sort of a thing. And if you don't have, a history with electricity or welding or any type of fabricating, it would have been a lot different. I think it's a lot harder than it seemed for us.
Yeah.
I definitely, if I didn't know about it, I don't know if I'd jump head first.
Right.
I would seek somebody to build it for me.
Yeah.
I think it was cool how the three of us all kind of did our part in a specific fashion. Like
Yeah.
anytime it got to something that I didn't understand, it was either you or like one of you two.
Yeah, that worked out well.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that resource, then it would definitely be easier to have somebody else do it, I think.
Yeah, and after doing this once, I think we could take a new trailer or an additional trailer and look at it and brainstorm together. Instead, we just kind of got after it. I had this idea with the spalted maple, and that was it. That's what we started
That
with.
That was the kickoff.
Yeah,
And
and we
it just
just-
kind of went.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think if we had a plan with goals and all that, it would make it go even more smoothly. But maybe not, 'cause then you run into issues where there's, angle steel where you want to mount some wood screws, and then you have to adapt and adjust. So I don't know. I don't know what the point of all that was.
So do you think we need to dive deeper into any of this? Like I know we talked before about, the first 4 episodes here were basically our decision making, and then this recap episode kind of going over, what we liked and didn't like, how it went. Do we need to dive deeper into these topics and subjects, and do we need to talk about electricity more? Do we need to talk about
Honestly, I think a Q&A would be a good thing to do because, like I said, a lot of this stuff comes easy to us, so we don't think of it as a problem area or a trouble spot, So maybe we just reach out on Facebook and ask our customers if they have questions, and then we do a recap that way.
That seems like a pretty good idea. So much happened in the last 3 weeks with that thing. Like we did these podcasts and there was incremental steps forward, but then after the last podcast till this one, we did a lot of the work.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
I guess I don't know what my point is about that either, but
I think it's harder to isolate certain points of it.
yeah,
It's easier to just, broad explain. We have to ask questions to generate answers. I want Steve from Athens, Georgia to say, how did you know what flooring to use?
Yeah.
And then we'll just give him the exact same answer. Oh, I just was at Menards and it was $3.29.
it matched. It looked good.
What's Menards?
All right, let's wrap it up. Bye, guys.
Bye. Later.